feel like gender and money are very similar.
Really is all men. And any man that's worth your time is going to admit that.
Low-key, high-key annoying when men are like, I love women, like I was raised by a strong woman. Why am I only worthy of respect if I'm strong? What if I'm a weak woman?
Hey everybody, it's time for another video reacting to insane woke TikToks because you guys apparently get a kick out of watching me suffer in real time. We're going to break down some of the wackiest ideas from the Clock app, but first, welcome back to my channel. I'm Brad Polumbo. I cover all the craziest things on the internet, in our politics, and in the LGBT community from a center-right moderate perspective. If you're new here, consider subscribing and sticking around. We just crossed 100,000 and I would love to have you join this growing community. And do consider dropping a like and commenting with your thoughts as we go along. Now, buckle up and get ready to lose some brain cells with me. Let's get into these TikToks. Up first, the new pressing frontier in TikTok feminism.
Do you guys want to know what I find low-key, high-key annoying? When men are like, I love women, like I was raised by a strong woman, blah, blah, blah. And they always say like the strong woman thing. It's like their go-to. And it's like, why am I only worthy of respect if I'm strong? What if I'm a weak woman? You know, does that make me less worthy of respect? I don't know. Just a weird thing that I always catch and notice men doing.
So if this is the level of complaint you've been reduced to, then babe, feminism must be doing pretty darn well. Come on now. We value strength over weakness just in humans in general, both men and women. It's just a positive attribute versus a negative attribute. And we constantly hear men described as strong men or a weak man, or it's just a human thing. It's actually a sign of equality if both men and women can be described as strong and weak. And isn't that what y'all supposed to be about when you say feminism is about equality? More importantly though, I'm just so sick of folks like this, and you find them all over TikTok, who are constantly looking for the most minute things, the most minor verbal tics to problematize, to get offended over, or to somehow connect to patriarchy, to racism, to sexism, to feminism, to something. It's really not all that deep, babe. And the constant desire to turn everything into some sort of oppression Olympics game or make it about victimhood somehow is getting exhausting. Up next, try to keep up with this TikTok because I genuinely struggled.
I feel like gender and money are very similar. Because we can acknowledge that gender and money are like completely made up arbitrary concepts, right? Like it is bananas how much of our lives is determined by this fake made up stuff like money and gender. Whether you have money or not has a huge impact on your quality of life. And similarly, what gender you are and if you are cis or trans can also have a huge impact on your quality of life. And I don't think anybody really likes that, right? But most people don't want to get rid of money and gender because we don't know what we would do without them. We can't imagine a world without them because we've never lived in a world without them. And often people who identify correctly some of the problems with money and gender can't solve them. You know the people who are like, hey, I'm looking for a roommate, women and they fabs only. The people who are like, this is LGBT housing, AFABs only. Trans men have male privilege. Trans women have male privilege. Those people are the crypto bros of the LGBT community. When I see someone who has that opinion in 2024, I'm like, you're like a dude who has an NFT in 2024. And the reason that this happens is because some people's critique is not that money and gender is bad, it's that they're not benefiting from it.
Y'all, I have watched this multiple times. I still have no idea what the this person just said. For one, I don't really agree that gender is made up, although I'll certainly acknowledge we attach a lot to gender that goes beyond simply the ramifications of the two biological sexes. But money really isn't made up, and also the two are totally different things, and I don't understand this weird conflation. A specific form of currency is just kind of made up. Like, why is the US dollar green? Like, why does it have this on it versus that? Like, that is all arbitrary and made up. But ultimately, money is a symbol that is representative of actual resources that are being exchanged. That's the difference between a monopoly dollar and an actual US dollar. Is this person arguing that we shouldn't have money? What are we supposed to do? Go back to a barter system? Because that wasn't exactly efficient Babe, in the same way, we're just never going to live in a world without gender because 99+% of people are perfectly comfortable with their biological sex and the natural ramifications of it. You'd be much better at arguing for acceptance and dignity and tolerance for transgender people or accommodation for people who live differently if you acknowledged this basic reality instead of wanting to tear down all of society as we know it, from our genders to our currency? Am I going crazy? Is it just me? Up next, would you take advice from a woke therapist?
I decided to go into mental health because I actually wanted to help people. But then, here I am in my master's, and it turns out that the reason people are doing so bad is because they're having perfectly normal responses to their environment. That environment being poverty and exploitation. And it's like, I don't want to be a therapist because I'm supposed to tell this person that they're not having a perfectly normal response to their horrific environment because of late stage capitalism. It's like if I teach them to cope in this unhealthy, toxic environment, that's just keeping the system as it is. See, I'm not doing too great.
Yes, sweetie, we can tell. So I keep seeing therapists on TikTok who are clearly themselves deeply mentally ill, and I find that kind of concerning. Just like I wouldn't want a personal trainer who is morbidly obese, I probably don't want my therapist to be having mental breakdowns on TikTok. Like if I was relying on this person to help me with serious mental health issues and I came across their content, yeah, I'd lose some faith in their ability, to be honest. I don't know. Am I off base? Like, would you trust this person? Let me know in the comments. Anyway, it's just like actually not true that mental health issues these days are all because of poverty and exploitation. For one, we've actually made a lot of material progress over the decades, and yet many of these mental health issues are as prevalent or more prevalent than ever. And we've all known many people who are affluent, college educated, come from wealthy families, etc., yet nonetheless struggle with mental health issues. It's not about poverty or exploitation. There's many other things going on that we could spend hours and hours talking about and trying to break down. Sometimes it can even work in the opposite direction that this person seems to suggest. In fact, according to the American Psychological Association, American teens from upper middle class families are more likely to have higher rates of depression, anxiety, and substance abuse than any other socioeconomic group of young people. So today's mental health issues really have nothing to do with poverty, exploitation, or late stage capitalism. And you'd think somebody getting an advanced degree in all this would know that. It's also just kind of insane to me that this guy actually says he basically doesn't want to help his patients because that would enable them to continue on and perpetuate a capitalist system. So you're really saying that your strange political ideology is more important than your patients' well-being? Sorry, but if you don't want to help your patients cope and do better, find a new line of work, bro. And please stop posting to TikTok. Up next, are most Americans living paycheck to paycheck? And is it really all Republicans' fault?
62% of Americans report living paycheck to paycheck. That was tweeted by an account that literally says the GOP. And what's hilarious about that is that every single Republican voted against raising the minimum wage. So they both acknowledge the problem and actively refuse to solve it. Well, if you raise the minimum wage, things are going to get more expensive. No, they won't. At least not to any degree that would matter. Everyone always likes to bring up, oh, do you want to pay $20 for a Big Mac? There is no reason you would ever have to pay $20 for a Big Mac. McDonald's, a multi-billion-dollar corporation, wants you to think that you have to pay $20 for a Big Mac if they actually pay their workers appropriately. They want you to believe that paying someone a good minimum wage so that they can support themselves is actively hurting you. That is not the case. People who work, they work full time, they work 40 plus hours a week. They should be able to afford to live. They should afford groceries, rent, utilities, necessities, and yes, have a little bit left over. 62% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck because Republicans, politicians, and corporations allow it.
Yes, girly, you're spot on. Except for the part where the very premise of this is just made up fake statistics. The whole 60% of Americans living paycheck to paycheck thing is basically made up. It just comes from surveys. If you ask people, are you living paycheck to paycheck, with no real explanation of what that means, no actual examination of their personal finances, just self-certification. And people tend to be kind of pessimistic and to understate their own financial prospects. So a lot of people say yes, because times feel tough. But that doesn't mean that many people are actually living paycheck to paycheck. In fact, according to Federal Reserve research, 61% of Americans could meet an unexpected $400 expense with money from savings, which means the vast majority are not living paycheck to paycheck. Of course, 39% of Americans living paycheck to paycheck is still higher than any of us want it to be, but it's a far cry from 62%. Now, yes, American families are absolutely struggling with sky-high prices thanks to inflation, but that's ironically in part due to the kind of insane government overspending and money printing that progressive folks like this completely support. And raising the minimum wage really has nothing to do with any of this. Yes, the federal minimum wage is still technically $7.25 and hasn't been raised in some time, but only 1.4% of American workers actually are paid that amount. That's right. Almost everybody is already paid way more regardless of what the technical legal minimum is. In fact, it's funny that this person mentions McDonald's so vociferously because according to Glassdoor, McDonald's already pays its workers an average of $12 to $16 an hour, which is way higher than the federal minimum wage, and in fact, pretty close to what they want the minimum wage to be anyway. There's a lot more we could discuss about this topic, but I'll just say this. It's so crazy to me how much force these pronouncements are made on TikTok by people who are so woefully ignorant about basic economics and reality. Up next, did you know the problem is all men and all white people? Listen up.
I need women to understand deeply that it really is all men. And any man that's worth your time is going to admit that. It's the same exact thing for racism and for white people. It's all white people.
Oh?
And the most dangerous ones are the ones who think that there are exceptions. And the most dangerous men are the ones who think that there are exceptions. Because we have all been taught the same shit growing up. It's not only all men, it's all women too. We are all victims of thinking under the patriarchy. Because this kind of thinking has been perpetrated onto all of us.
Call me crazy, but I really don't like this. I, for one, at least still believe it's bad, actually, to demonize people based on their membership in a group of some immutable demographic characteristic they can't control. And it's also just not true. For one, we weren't all told the same things growing up or imbued the same ideology and messages. There's huge generational differences and cultural differences, and whether you were raised in a liberal or conservative household, a religious or an atheist household, like, it's just not true. We've all imbued the same messaging. And it's just totally not true that all men are sexist or violent or predators in some kind of way. And when you say that, you're actually kind of giving cover. I know it's not your intention, but you're kind of giving cover to those who genuinely are by making people unable to see the trees for the forest. The same thing with racism. I do believe racism still exists in America, and where it does, we should work to eliminate it at every turn. But falsely claiming that all white people are racist or that they're all equally bad except for the ones who flagellate themselves in front of people like this and gain their permission as one of the good bad ones or whatever is not productive, babe. You're simultaneously giving cover to the actual bad actors and watering down the seriousness with which anyone can take the words you're throwing around like candy on Halloween. You're not promoting social progress by continuing to divide people up into demographic boxes and draw sweeping broad conclusions about individuals based on collective guilt. That's bad, actually. Y'all, I swear, TikTok, it makes me feel like I'm losing my mind, and I can't handle any more in one sitting without incurring permanent brain damage. If you got a kick out of this video, don't forget to like and comment with your thoughts, and do consider subscribing. We just crossed 100K, and I would love to have you all here with me as this community continues to grow and expand. That's it for this video, but if you're somehow not sick of me yet, you can go here or here to check out some of my other recent content that you might like.